Welcome to the Creativity, Thinking, and Education podcast with your host, Patricia Rose Upsack. Today we will continue our conversation with the remarkable Ricardo Ocampo.
That we have everything within us that we need to be successful. Sometimes we just need to be guided or help discover it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And that's what we do as NLP practitioners, is we help people discover, oh, you're thinking about this problem in this way. What if we switch this?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it opens possibilities.
Right.
And that's what we do. We help people get unstuck and move forward to their goals. So, we talk about in NLP, what is your present state or present situation, and what are your desired state or situation? We don't focus so much on, how did that happen? And tell us all about your family history. And, we don't go into traditional therapy, which is analyze your past ad nauseum.
And I completely agree with that, what you're talking about. So that's good.
But it's like, where are you now? Where do you want to go?
Yeah.
And what's blocking you?
Right.
Remove the blocks, and then you can get to where you want to go.
Right.
And that's what NLP does. It's a shortcut for getting people to where they want to go. And along the way, you discover a lot about yourself and about others. One of the big things in NLP, which Virginia Satir pointed to, is rapport, creating a connection with someone. How do you create a connection? And we teach you how to do that. It's very intentional, which also has, brought NLP under scrutiny because, it can be manipulative. Well, anything can be used for ill or good.
Right, right.
A hammer is a hammer.
Right.
You can use it to create something or destroy something.
Right.
It's not the hammer that's the problem. It's the intention.
Right.
It's the use. And that's another big thing in NLP, one of the big presuppositions that I think as teachers we sometimes forget or perhaps don't even really realize. And this is one of the things that I learned in NLP is the presupposition that there's positive intention behind every behavior.
Oh, that's interesting. Could you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, gladly. When I first heard that, it's like, well, no, how's that possible? It doesn't make any sense. How can there be a positive intent behind someone who, let's say, is abusing women, for example?
Right.
But there's a difference between behavior, what you do, and what's driving it, the intention, the need.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, this person might need to feel powerful, to feel in control, to, feel a sense of satisfaction. And this is how this person knows how to get that, through these set of behaviors.
Ah, okay.
So it's not the behavior that we're condoning. It's looking at the positive intent and how can we supply the positive intent in a different way.
Right.
So when we look at a child and, they hit little Johnny, what was the intent behind that? Most of us, I've heard parents, I did it before I knew better, and I still sometimes, fall off the wagon,
mm-hmm.
Will judge, criticize the behavior,
right.
And will mix up behavior with identity. So we will tell a child, well, you are bad.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Instead of, I love you, I care about you, and you did something that is, not right, or it hurt someone, where we kind of lump the two, behavior and identity. But if we get curious, and I did this when I was teaching, a little child would come to me and she's crying and, they hit me. Well, I would ask them, well, what is it that you want?
Mm-hmm.
And they would kind of stop, and it's like, they would never, I don't think they had been asked that question before. Or I would ask them, well, what do you need to feel better?
Uh-huh.
And they would say, well, I just need a hug. You give them a hug and they're fine and they go away.
Right.
We overcomplicate things at times.
Right, yeah.
NLP is about curiosity. It's being curious. What's driving a behavior?
Uh-huh.
Is it because little Johnny took something? Is it because little Johnny said something? Is it because whoever hit Johnny wants attention from him? What is the intent? Once we understand the intent, then we can supply the intent.
Right.
And that is creating connection with another person. Instead of, oh, stop that. It's like, well, I'm curious, what were you trying to do by doing X behavior? Oh, well, I was trying to X, Y, Z, and what will that do for you? So it's that curiosity of where is their thinking? Where are their needs? What are their intentions? And if you can satisfy those, then you have a really good chance of connecting with the person because you're not judging them, criticizing them, and you're not becoming an opponent.
Right, exactly. And that's such a balancing act. It's like being on a teeter-totter,
Mm-hmm.
because, it's like you're an authority figure, but at the same time, you're trying really hard to know that you're there for them,
Exactly.
And it's an interesting balancing act. Okay, so let's talk about, do you have a process? I mean, could you pick start at A and take us through maybe in something that they can sink their teeth into, says, okay, this is, like, for example, okay, a teacher comes in with a group and they know nothing about NLP. Mm-hmm. What would you say that your goals are for them to learn by the time they were done with their first, like, how long is the first section of what you teach?
Are you referring to like a practitioner? Excuse me, a practitioner?
Well, I don't know. I mean, in other words, if somebody says, okay, I want to learn about NLP, what do they do? Mm-hmm. I mean, how, what does that look like in terms of time and in terms of cost and in terms of all of those things?
Okay. So through NLPoftherockies.com, you can go and we have a free, like 1.5 to 2 hour intro to NLP. It's called Discover NLP.
Okay.
So that's a 2 hour sort of introduction where I go give a pretty broad overview and have you experience NLP.
That's cool. Okay.
NLP is about experience. It's there's a lot of thinking and theory about it, but the real power is in the application of it.
Right.
So you have to experience it really to understand what it is. Up from that, we have a 2-day weekend. It's called the Starter.
Okay.
NLP, and that's about $400, and it's on sale right now. And that's a 2-day intro into NLP, and you really sink your teeth into it in terms of what it is, what it can do, and it opens the possibilities of more.
Okay.
And then from there, we have the Practitioner, which is a 12-day training, extended training, and 13 days for the residential, because there's a 1 day off in there, so it's a 13-day program.
Okay.
The $2,500 to $2,700 range for that.
Ricardo, for some reason, what you just said blipped out. So could you repeat that again for the audience? So we just finished with the 13-day thing, and then it went blah.
Okay. So the 13-day, there's a 1 day break.
Okay.
In that 13, that's why it's 13 days as opposed to 12 days on the weekends. Extended practitioner, and the price range for that is from like $2,500 to $2,700 depending on purchase dates. We have sales going on right now for the trainings and things like that.
I see. Okay.
But that is a full experience about the practitioner training. You get all different processes. It would be great for teachers, parents. I mean, it's hard to market NLP honestly because it's applicable in all fields.
Right.
Psychotherapy, sales, leadership, teaching, relationship, you name it. Mm-hmm. NLP deals with the human being.
Right.
And so the human being is at the root of all of these things, as a parent, as a husband, as an employee, as an employer, as a boss. Mm-hmm. So NLP is very useful. So when we draw people into our trainings, we get different fields coming in. which also enhances the learning experience because you're learning from different fields.
Right. So, okay. Now, I didn't ask you this. Do you have a book, or are you thinking about writing a book?
Yes. I'm thinking on 2 books, essentially. One is on relationships with couples, and the other one is NLP, using NLP. Okay. And it's NLP with more of a spiritual focus.
So, do you want to talk about Peru?
Sure.
Well, because the thing is for me, I think everything's connected, and Peru just keeps coming up for me everywhere I go. And my family. Well, I have 2 daughters, and one of them is married to a Venezuelan, and so that whole family is bilingual, and they have gone to Peru twice in the last 2 summers, and they're going back this coming summer, and they want to take me to Machu Picchu because I'm the only one out of my entire family that hasn't been there. Ooh. And then I went to a conference, and this woman who is actually, I'm going to be interviewing her in a couple of weeks. She was a very close partner in terms of a working partner with Virginia Satir, and so she's going to be doing a lot of some really interesting podcasts and interviews for us too on Virginia Satir. And it's interesting because yours is going to be first, and then hers is after that. But what's interesting to me is that she also spends a lot of time in Peru. So there seems to be a connection here. And so do you want to talk about Peru and what's going on there for you?
Sure. Well,
and you don't have to, just so you know. You can talk about something else.
It's fine. Just to give you a little bit of a background how I ended up there. My first NLP training in 2004, I met Tom Best. He was my first trainer in NLP, and a very spiritually oriented man, and he passed away in 2012. And during that training, I learned a lot about myself and was able to let go of a lot of energy that I had been supplying the victim victim mindset. And he was offering on an evening seminar, kind of like a little workshop on the American medicine wheel and Chinese belief systems. And he mentioned a trip to Peru. And something in me just said, you have to go. You have to go. I mean, there was something in me. I didn't have the money. I didn't have the time. But it's one of those things that everything lined up for me to be able to go to Peru. And I had, of course, these expectations about what it would be and, all these things. And we went to Peru, and I met with Don Americo Yabar. He's the mystic that we were working with at the time. And on our first expedition to the Sacred Valley, we stopped at Chinchero, which is a town in between the Sacred Valley and Cusco. And we stopped at these massive stones that Americo said, previous shamans would sit and meditate and have sort of like conferences and things. And so we stopped, and we're going to meditate, and you're going to travel the stars. And, I'm kind of new to meditation, the whole spirituality aspect of my life. And I'm kind of like, opening one eye and looking around, seeing what's happening with others, and nothing's happening for me. Absolutely nothing. And it was just great disappointment. I spent all this money. I'm here. It's a waste of time. And I reached a point of surrender. And I just said, well, whatever this trip will be. I'll enjoy it here. And as soon as I surrendered, things began to just change in my life. I felt energy that I had never felt. That culminated in the next to the last day. We went to Amaru Machai, which is the Temple of the Moon above Cusco. And I had an experience of, I think my Kundalini was woken. I felt energy course through my body like I've never felt in my life. And it literally changed my life. I've been back to Peru 6 times. I lived there for a month with my family, and I've translated for various groups, working with Americo. I'm the translator. And I was honored to travel with Tom's wife, Bobby Best, in 2013 to honor his memory, and I translated for the group. And again, it's going from this victim-like mentality of who am I, oh poor little me, to being offered the opportunity to translate for my first trainer in NLP. Right. And I find, Peru to be my spiritual home, literally. I found my spiritual path there. And that's where I tend to go back, and I'm planning on going back soon. And hopefully, leading a trip to Peru. Not that I'm the leader, but, sort of putting it together, guiding it, and being the host, translator for the group. But working with, again, the energy which is in Peru. And, it's nothing to do with ayahuasca or San Pedro or anything like that. It's actually about being present with yourself and the energy that exists in Peru, which is very special. I didn't know what it was. I didn't, when I first went down there, I had no clue. All I knew is I was being called to go. It was this drive to go. I experienced some things along the way. There's a plant called Munia. And prior to going to Peru, I had asked Tom Best to, give me some books to prepare, for the trip. And he said, you don't really need any. You already made the decision. That's preparation enough. But if you want to, here are some books. And one of them was called Plant Spirit Medicine. I don't remember the author. And I read it, and I got the concept, that plants speak to you and that shamans can communicate with plants and know what they're good for and all of these things. And sort of it went over my head. I got it, but, it's like, okay, that's great, la la. But on one of the trips, we went down to Puno, and I got this scent of a plant. And I was literally like a drug addict. What is that plant? What is it? And Americo's walking on with the rest of the group, continuing his teaching. And I'm kind of like, well, what is it? Where is it? And Tom knew what it was. And he got a bunch of that for me. And when I put it up to my nose, I didn't ingest it or anything, just the scent of it. It was like a rotor-rooter just going down my chest and opening it wide open. So, tears are coming down, and I'm crying, and my life is being transformed. And that's when I got the book. And again, that's NLP. That's the experience of something. You can read about it. And I got an intellectual understanding. But not until I experienced what Munia was doing for my body did I get it, did I live it. And that's when I understood the book completely.
Gotcha. Wow. Yeah.
And that's what NLP is about. There's a lot of books. Yeah, you can read books, and there's all the skills that you need in a book. But it's practicing it and using it. And, I also have an experience in construction. I'm a general contractor as well.
You're a busy man.
I'm a busy guy. Yeah, I love to learn. When you get videos or a book from the library on installing tile, well, it tells you how to do it, assuming that everything's square and perfect.
Right.
It doesn't tell you what happens when it's out of square or, it's a little wonky here or there.
Right.
And that's what NLP trainings do, because we explain it, we do a demo with someone, then you practice with someone. So you guide someone through the process. Then you're guided through the process by someone, and then you observe someone being guided through the process. So you get to do this at least 4 times. So when you walk away from this, it's in your bones. You own it. You experience it. Rather than just talking about it and reading about it.
Right.
That's the difference for our trainings, is that you actually live it. Right. You experience it.
So, okay. So here you are. You've been in NLP since 2004. What are your dreams in terms of what would you like to do around, we're coming pretty close to the end of our interview, and I'd really like to know what you see yourself doing with NLP and some goals that you have that are connected to that over the next 5 years.
Okay. One of the big goals for me personally is the relationship work.
Okay.
And not just in couples, because relationship can deal with, parent-child.
Oh, yeah.
All of that. But more specifically for me, in my mind, is a couple relationship. Because I've gone through my own divorce, and I've seen the damage and carnage that can be left behind when we don't address our own needs. And I don't mean that selfishly. I mean,
no, I know.
Needs in terms of what makes me happy, what makes me tick. And I was so confused for a long time, thinking that it was out there, outside of me. Mm-hmm. If I do this, if I get that, if I get this person, if I'll be happy.
Right.
Well, that never happens. You get the thing, and then you get bored, and, well, what's the next thing?
Right.
And it took a long time for me to really learn that it's coming from within. And that's my focus now. It's helping people to learn that it comes from you, to love yourself, to accept yourself, so that therefore you can provide your own happiness and not be dependent on someone else outside of you, i.e. your partner, that they need to behave or do or be a certain way for you to be happy.
Right.
Because that begins the end of the destruction.
Absolutely.
Right? So it's using NLP to give people the awareness of how do we operate differently as men and women, but within that is how do we operate differently needs. And so there's a lot of things that come into this training beyond NLP. Different models like transactional analysis, love languages, attachment theory, all of these different components that help sort of explain how we are where we're at with our relationships.
Okay.
And then using specific NLP skills to help people with being. And sometimes that leads to the decision, this relationship can't continue or won't continue. Because they find that they're not a good match for each other.
Right.
And sometimes that happens. And, we stigmatize it so much, judge it so much. But,
right. It's the whole judgment thing is another conversation.
Yeah, it is a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
So
but it's relationship work
because then that affects the family.
It. Right. It does. Yeah, that's good. Okay.
If children can see a loving relationship or one in which communication exists, it's a whole different experience where there's fighting and arguing and, treating each other badly.
Right.
And that's my main goal, I think, is to learn to communicate in a different way that respects each other and how you are in partnership with each other to create something that is of value, of desire, of appreciation of each other. Rather than judgment and criticism and attacking.
Right. So besides relationships, is there anything else you're going to be working on in terms of, NLP?
Well, we're looking at modifying our NLP trainings, given technology and how we do webinars and all of that is a combination of the two because it is difficult for most people to take, 2 weeks off to be up and about. And, when I first took my training, it was a month-long training.
Right, yeah.
You took a month off and you were up there for a month. And at that time,
that's hard for people, yeah.
It is. So we're looking at modifying trainings so it's sort of the conceptual stuff, the book learning can happen online with some exercises and using it down to a less number of days, but I believe that NLP is learned through experience. So
right.
you need to be with someone practicing it, being coached through it. If you have difficulty, we're there to help you, try this, try that. This is what it's not perfectly square. This is what you need to do.
Exactly.
That expertise, to help you through it.
Right.
Again, it's like coaching a child, to read. Well, perhaps they have trouble with this particular sound. You just help them through it.
Right.
That's the whole purpose, yeah.
Well, Ricardo, this has been wonderful, but we're running out of time.
Yeah, we are.
Okay, so again, before I, say goodbye to you, because you've just been so fascinating, and we might do this again maybe next summer or sometime when you're not off traveling, so that we can, move in to see where you are and what's the next step and blah, blah, all that stuff. Give them how to contact you or how to find out more about your work.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. And thank you for this opportunity. I appreciate it very much, truly, to be able to share this.
I think it's really important.
Yeah, it is. I think it's something that literally can make a difference in the world.
Right. I agree.
I really do. So it's NLPoftherockies.com. That's our website. Mm-hmm. And I can also be reached via telephone at 303-550-8553.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Ricardo. And I can't wait to see what people think of our wonderful interview.
Well, thank you so much, and have a wonderful day.
You too. Thank you for joining me here at the Creativity, Thinking, and Education podcast. NLP, or Neuro-Linguistic Programming as it's called, is really, really a vital and important tool for teachers, for parents, for people of all walks of life. And I really encourage you to look into it either in books or through contacting Ricardo or anybody in your area, because it really is wonderful. If you find value in this podcast and the message we are trying to spread, then click the subscribe button and give my show a review. I'm so excited to be able to share the timeless awareness of all of our guests. Goodbye, and have a wonderful rest of your night, day, week, whenever you're listening to this. Take care.